An aggressive growth.
Sense out of
Yeah, so you got the read the first chat. That's even better.
Ransom shield long.
And, you know, it's
Good morning, Jeff.
good morning.
Man, what a great weekend it's been. Everything's gone viral from your fingertips to your keyboard and out to the world. And so today we're going to talk more about what is going to happen next now that Skype is dead.
Well, Skype died. Skype died a long time ago. Its half-life is very long, but officially last week or whenever it was, Microsoft decided, yeah, it's over. But you know, the reality is that Skype almost never happened. And so there was an article that got my attention because I get these Google News alerts sometimes, and someone was kind enough to write a history lesson about the history of internet telephony, and it gave a nice shout out to me and kind of like wrote it in its own words. This author decided, yes, remember free-wheel dial-up in '95 and how that was basically the first internet telephone network. And then in '96, how ACTA came in, which basically was 300 phone companies going to the FCC asking for the sale and use of internet telephony software to be banned, and the makers of the software to be regulated as phone companies, which triggered the founding of the Voice on the Net, or the VON Coalition. And then back in the year 2000 and 2001, I was in June of each year, I was on the steps of the U.S. Capitol hosting the first ever in the world internet freedom rallies. I was out there advocating for internet freedom, literally on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, and I brought some musicians with me to get the attention. The second time around, Chairman Kennard came and showed his support, and it was absolutely mind-bending and beautiful. And that was in the June of 2000. It was also arguably two of the hottest days in Washington, D.C. each summer, and it was fun. And then ultimately, in 2003, with the help of some great attorneys, as a person, as an individual, I petitioned the FCC asking for regulatory clarity. I just asked for regulatory clarity that voice communication that originates on the broadband internet for not to be regulated as telecom. And what does that mean? Well, end-to-end IP, which today may be obvious to anyone who's using Google Meet, Zoom, Teams, anyone using FaceTime, and gosh, so many other applications, that's end-to-end IP. That means without making a telephone call, without dialing an actual telephone line, we're able to enable communications. And I was afraid of what would happen if that was not looked at as if that was looked at as telecom. Bad news. And of course, no one saw the pandemic coming. But if you can imagine everyone who stayed at home, worked from home, studied from home, if they didn't have free access to these communication services, life as we know it would have been a lot different. So, so I would say you're welcome. But truly, I did it for different reasons. My motivation was to provide a greenfield opportunity for entrepreneurs and for everyone to just know that we can do better things. And that's been successful. And I also learned a life lesson that the power of one is much stronger than the power of none. That there are times when one person can make a difference. Yeah, it may take 1 million people to do certain things, but when you stand up and you share your voice, you can be heard. And that's one of the takeaways from the pullover order. And so a lot of that work that I did, on behalf of me and the world, but I did help set up the a wonderful setup for Skype to flourish. And Skype did amazing things. It had the founders of Skype were infamous for doing Kazaa, which was let's just say stealing of certain things and not recognizing ownership of music. And it was messy. It took years. It wasn't until I think 2006 that Nicholas was able to get into the United States properly. That's after he sold Skype to eBay to get rid of all the suits and stuff. But you make a point. You're a disruptor. You disrupt. You may have a high profile, and sometimes it's very impactful. But they did not use standards, and this is a big thing. So what's next for me are vCons, virtualized conversations. I'll just mention that while Skype was Skype and did great things along the way, and they did back in the early 2000s, consumers don't know that there was a big mess with home networking. It's called NATs and firewalls. There's a legacy to it. Skype figured out how to traverse firewalls much better, more eloquently than most other people in the IP telephony space. However, it's 2025. Skype is dead, and Skype is still alive quite well. WebRTC, which is this technology that we use here with StreamYard, it works quite well. So there's a life lesson here that you can be just out of the gate, or actually in their case, Skype happened 7 years after free world dial-up, so they weren't really the first. They did make a lot of money though for certain people. Their investors quite well. I understand it from one of their investors that when the pulver order was issued, it helped facilitate someone I met make literally $400 million from their investment in Skype. And I did get a firm handshake thanking me for that. That was about the only thing I got out of it, but it was okay. Again, it's sometimes some things are not motivated by money. Sometimes you just want to do good, or you want to do great things for the future. So for me, Skype was there. It's a historic reference these days. One of the lessons is that standards do work. So what persists? What's next? Well, SIP-based communications is continuing. That's a standard from the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, WebRTC, all these other things that happened before and during Skype, they're lasting. And what's in front of us right now is the future of communication in a way that no one saw coming, seriously. And if you think about it, I remember years ago, my dad at one point was involved in making investments, and he told me that he once bought a plot of land that had a gold mine in it, but it wasn't economically feasible to mine the gold. And I didn't understand that from his perspective, the price of gold had to be at a certain price because it costs money to extract ore from the land.
Right.
It takes money to process that. And if the price of gold wasn't at a certain price, it was worthless to him. I mean, yes, there's potential,
Right.
but it was not minted. And the thing is, anyone in the world that's in a business of conversations, let's say, I don't know, you own a call center and you have for years, or you're a corporation and you're keeping archives of conversations with permission, of course, with your customers, where you're doing customer support, you're doing project development, and you have these archives of conversations. Well, what do you do with it? Well, maybe nothing, but now those conversations can be used as robot food to gain insights. And what's next is the ability to convert historical recordings. And by the way, it's recordings, both voice and video. It could be messages. It could even be email. And we're at that point in time where it's now economically feasible to gain insights from all of that information and effectively mine it. So it's been hiding in plain sight all these years. And now we're in the future of conversational AI, but just your business as an individual, as a person, as an opportunity. We now have the ability to capture these conversations, save them in a standard file format. And with that, and with the interoperability that comes with that, opens up a brave new world of opportunity for many people to benefit from it. There's going to be a slew of people that are going to be in the vCon business of building insights, of building systems that integrate insights into communication systems. Sometimes it might be within a company, within the enterprise itself, to better understand what was said and not said. On a personal basis, wouldn't it be nice if you're in the sales business, or maybe you're working in a regulated industry like selling insurance, where at the end of each day, because your calls have to be recorded anyway, that you got a recap of everybody you spoke to and the status of your leads. And the following morning, you get a text of these are the people you should be following up with, both from yesterday and from last week, and hold you accountable. Where we're in a point right now where customer relationship management systems can be automatically updated from the conversations that are captured. So there's what's next. Skype, is a building block. SIP is a building block. vCons is an AI building block. And what we're able to do now is to look into the future and start to do things that were never before practical and truly never before possible. And that's one of the reasons, just one of the reasons, why I continue to be super excited about living at the dawn of the era of the future of communication, because in some ways, communications as we know it is over. Because it used to be, if you're in the telecom industry, if you're a managed service provider, you would think that maybe you're responsible for managing the call detail records. Maybe you have to deliver conversations from one person to another, when you think when your customer hangs up the phone, the conversation ended. In this business, that's when the conversation insights just begin.
Right.
And now we're in this whole new brave new world of being able to understand stuff. And from a tactical perspective and strategic perspective, here's the big thing. Companies that prior to November 22 that were offering business insights, that were doing all sorts of services for call centers, they are completely disrupted because you and I can start recording conversations and getting better level insights than we're being sold. And the price to do so is your time and some tokens on a large language model, and that's it. So you didn't have to invest millions and millions of dollars in R&D and spend thousands or tens of thousands of hours to train AI to better understand how to read your conversational data. Using a standard format like vCon, it happens for you. And the other part of it is, which becomes a touchy subject, is okay, how do I protect my data? How do I make sure that this data, how do I manage consent? Because if you're running a business and you're in the US, you're in Europe, there are lots of rules and responsibilities for consent, managing consent, and for that matter, permission to do have conversations to begin with. So there's another protocol that came out of the IETF called SCIT. It stands for Supply Chain Integrity, Transparency, and Trust. And when you build a framework using vCons and SCIT, you now have an opportunity to not only capture those conversations and use it as robot food for your AI, you now have a way to manage it and with transparency. And if regulators ask, you can show them specifically how each person gave consent for the conversational information to be used. So that's in front of us. And what we're really talking about are billions of ideas of billions of dollars of future revenue. Not maybe tomorrow, but over the next few years, it's going to happen. The telecom industry is going to grow, but I think by nature it's going to change, because if telecom was somehow defined as being in the minutes, not minutes business or sessions business, this extension changes stuff, particularly for everyone who's in the CPaaS or UCaaS business. They spent the last 16 years attempting to drive conversations into a company, and 16 years into this revolution, most of those companies suffer from sameness. They suffer from more or less offering the same product in a different kind of light. vCons and AI change everything. AI is an accelerant to how companies operate. They just cannot ignore it anymore. And then you add the AI to the conversations, you get insights, which means now products and services that were once thought about as impossible now become possible. And on the back end of that, now we're looking at, okay, well, now how does a small business benefit from this, a medium-sized business, and a large business benefit from this? And the answer is tremendously. Because if a couple of months ago, I spoke to a small family business. They're an engineering firm. They have just a handful of engineers, and one of their engineers left after 14 years, and they were like miffed. They just lost so much work, so much insights. I said, do you have that person's emails from all the engineering meetings? They said yes. I said, did you know you could build a knowledge base if you simply took all those emails that are sitting on your servers, wrap them as vCons and save them? Now you could have total recall. That said, what? What are you talking about? So I took them through the steps, and for them, it was quite economic for them to have just that knowledge of the elders, if you will, being able to be shared in their company. So while we're always looking at services going to companies, these types of breakthroughs offer companies, large and small, to benefit from the evolution of vCons and the evolution of AI.
Right. But I think that's where the jumping off point begins, right? Is because we already have enough data siloed in our own organizations and companies when we're looking to improve how we interface with each other, how we take a legacy project, maybe move it forward, is to use the vCon file format to really attach to what they're currently doing. A lot of people, Jeff, want to go on the outside and come in, where I think you're absolutely right. It needs to come from the inside. And what can we do today with what we have?
Right. And also, just like any other type of file format or email, like email, you have attachments.
Right.
You're able to absolutely attach documents and really anything pertaining to that's relevant or related to a conversation to a vCon. So vCon is is a file format that's well formatted, well thought out. It's going to be adopted not only by the IETF as a standard, but the implication is that regulatory agencies around the world are going to use it for enforcement purposes. So there's, if you happen to be in an industry that's a regulated industry, like in fintech, finance, where conversations with clients have to be recorded, or you're working in healthcare, you're working in emergency services, there are a whole slew of reasons why conversations need to be recorded. If you're dealing with even, in the 911 space, if you look at the IETF working group, one of the reasons why emergency services is literally part of that is because of the concept of recording radio recordings, so that if you're running a dispatch, you can capture the vCons. You can vCon every conversation. By the way, if you're running a limousine service or a taxi dispatch, you can also capture those in vCons. And if you're running air traffic control, the same thing. We can capture all those conversations. They don't have to be on the telephone. They could be in any form, any format, to provide relevant references to understand context and the content that it infers. And this is just the beginning of something brand new that's going to change. The other thing that's really cool is that the cost of doing this is going down, not up, because the efficiency of these large language models, whether it's Gemini, whether it's a Claude, whether it's OpenAI stuff, it's getting cheaper, not more expensive. What's getting expensive is standing still. Companies could no longer afford to stand still, put their head in the sand, and say it ain't happening. And sure, I understand that if you're about to retire this year, in the next 3 months, I get it. If you're thinking about your exit strategy in the next 18 months, you might need to think about it. And certainly the people that replace you, they're already thinking about this stuff. And I think now's the time to embrace the opportunities. If you were born after the dot-com boom and you thought, whoa, that was kind of cool to be those 90s, that was interesting, and that people just missed out on something big. Right. Every generation has an opportunity for the next big thing. This may not even be the big thing, but if you're in the communications sector, this is an opportunity which will be remembered, and it will transform how we look at conversations. And it's just the beginning. And if you want to put out a wider outlook on this, if you happen to be a builder, if you like to build things, think of building applications that are powered by vCons. So assume that you're sitting on top of thousands of conversations, and you happen to be an expert in I don't know, perhaps you run a hospital, perhaps you run a farm, perhaps you run an accounting firm. You want to understand, each industry has nuances in the conversation between customers and between practitioners and their clients. And if you can, today is the opportunity to start thinking about the applications to build that latches on those insights and shares them in a unique way, because all that data is really hiding in plain sight inside the vCon.
Well, I think about the legal industry, right? Where you definitely have to have the dissertation, you have to be able to document conversations, and then you have what I consider the backlog of what the paper says. And I think, well, now vCon can get introduced, where now the conversation can not only be documented, but you can have an understanding of what it is, because it's a two-way directional versus a one-way directional. And that's the next evolution of application, guys. As you're listening and watching to our live today, application of vCon is the next step. And a lot of times, we're really stuck in what I consider, oh, it's same like everything else. Really, no, it's not. Because of how vCon is set in the file format, it's really the data of your conversations that is not only going to be regulated, not only going to be sought after, but also it's going to need to be embedded in our day-to-day practices. I mean, Jeff, you do it on your blog. I mean, you just have to understand, guys, that what Jeff is bringing to the market, and all of our developers and our people who are coming to our meetups and our 3-day event in the fall, it's because the conversation just begins. And that's what we're trying to capture.
And I think that's a good part. I think that it's that's just the beginning. The genesis of the future is happening right now.
Yes, exactly. So, Jeff, as you know, we continue to, share with everyone. We've got a meetup coming up this month in Dallas, guys. We're going to be doing Comerica Bank, one of our partners, right there where we consider the conversation is just going to begin with many of the developers, CISOs, CTOs, CIOs who are coming in because of the fact that conversations, that data, you already are giving your data right? Through a conversation you're having. You're already calling Delta on the phone and having a conversation, and your conversation is there, and that data is being accessed. And so, this meetup, Jeff, your vision for the meetup that's happening in Dallas, I want everyone to hear what your vision is.
Well, by the way, if you happen to be Delta Airlines, not that we don't like you, but in fact, we probably do. But when you answer the phone by saying this call is being recorded for quality assurance purposes, you're not giving me an option to opt out. And by the way, that means in at least 5 states in the U.S., you're in violation of a whole bunch of privacy laws. Hello, Delta. Hello, every other airline. Hello, every other call center that just does that. It's going to catch up to you. But what is the meetup about? Well, first of all, I should mention that the next industry conference focusing on the future of vCons is happening in Dallas, October 21st to 23rd. And so ahead of that, why not, come to Dallas and start connecting the dots with the people from the local, whether you're in Richardson, whether you're in Plano, whether you're in Dallas, or for that matter, within 5-hour, 6-hour driving distance, come up. If you're in Austin, come on down, or just drive a little up. If you're in Corpus Christi, you're in San Antonio, you're in Houston, you know how to get to Dallas.
Right.
Austin. And so this is about? This is about ways to make money in 2025. If you happen to be a developer and you understand what a RESTful API is, if you understand JavaScript, if you particularly know Python, and you're not able to get the job you want, well, you can create one for yourself. Because I always believe maybe you should just fire your boss and hire yourself. Give yourself the opportunities that no one else would give you because you see something they don't. And this is an opportunity for entrepreneurs, people who want to be entrepreneurs, to take that next step and spend 3 days investing in their future and learning. This is a learning opportunity. And by the way, if you happen to be working in an established communication company, you want to come because you want to understand what your competition is already doing. You want to understand how to deploy vCons. If you're a chief product officer or you're in product marketing, you want to understand what vCons offer you that you don't know about. You want to understand how you can then leverage this to your future, and more importantly, how to better serve your customers. If you happen to work in a large enterprise, medium enterprise, or small business, this is an opportunity to understand how to embrace this. Because not everyone watching this video and listening were alive in 1995, or let's just say they were maybe not at work. They may be on this planet, but they might have been kids growing up. But let me tell you, there was back in it was December '94. I'm sitting in an office on Wall Street in the World Trade Center. I had 10 executives from Cantor Fitzgerald Securities in my room, and I demonstrated the World Wide Web to these people. I told them, and I showed them in just a half hour. We traveled the world. We went to a website in London, went to a website in Tokyo, went to a website in Australia. Then I took them around the United States. I said, this internet, it's going to be big, really big. And then we ended up putting our email. We used to have proprietary email system. CCmail was a thing back then. And we used our proprietary email to communicate within the company, within our offices. But connecting to the internet, a big thing. Internet email, the way that we use email these days wasn't always like that. We used to have our own proprietary systems, and standards, once again, helped us connect those dots. MCI was the first one who tried to do this with MCI mail. But anyway, I digress. The point is that the future ahead of us is just as awe-inspiring as it was the first day you went on the internet and you realized you had a great access to so much information. And depending upon how old you are, you may have been born into this, but you also may have been born into an era where there was no color on televisions. You might have only known about radio, but we see how technology both is transformational and creates wonderful opportunities. So the meetup, I'm looking to meet people who are interested in their future, who want to help change the world, and at least better understand what a vCon is and see how it's meaningful for them today and help us together build a roadmap to tomorrow.
Well, not only that, guys, everything that's going to be happening here is going to start in those very conversations in that room. And Jeff, I think you curate that in a salon style. It's very high touch, very executive level of conversations where we're trying to solve real problems, guys, in your industry, in your silo that you're in. And Jeff, I think one of the things that's been powerful that I've seen and witnessed myself is that when you're curating these conversations, you want everyone to leave with whatever they wanted to come in asking for. And that's because it's not this big conglomerate, huge distant conversation. He's really curating the room so that the conversations can be meaningful and focused on how to use vCon in your organization.
Right. And by the way, just bring me back to the conversation. Skype is dead. What's next? I do want to give a shout out to Dave Erickson and the team at Found, because I have to say that I'm quite impressed. If you truly are looking for a Skype replacement, and that was a tease while you're listening to this video, if you got this far, check out Found, Phound. It is amazing. And by the way, Found does create vCons. So you'll find in the future, you'll be able to perhaps get a vCon of those conversations. But the point is, Found is this wonderful application. It verifies your identity and it has a whole bunch of other features of functionality. And it also works in high definition voice. It gives you high quality. Skype wasn't always known for high quality anything. It always found the lowest common denominator to make things work. Found, that's Phound. It's an app on the App Store. It works on Apple. It works on your desktop. It works on Android. It's pretty amazing. And so a shout out to everyone on the Found team. It's amazing stuff that they're doing over at Found, and I'm quite impressed. So I could have said that at the very beginning, but that's the benefit of getting to this part of the conversation, because Found is where it's at. If you're truly looking for a Skype replacement, it is the best piece of software that I've seen in a very long time, and it's very adaptive. It works. Kind of reminds me of how I used to approach software development, because it has so many features. And it does a bunch of things great, not just one thing, but it's closed in the sense that you can create your own. Most people these days don't answer the phone. This is a reason to answer the phone, because the people you're talking to are people you want to speak to, and everyone's been vetted and verified. So that's Found. So I just want to throw out that tidbit.
Great job, Dave. I think all of us are going to be excited to see you fly from Hawaii to Dallas, and then also see us in the fall. We're calling you out, Dave.
Yeah, Dave Erickson. And by the way, thank you for supporting our event in advance. Yes, thanks.
Well, Jeff, as we wrap up today, I think the next thing is we're going to put the live link, guys, in the live here for the registration for the meetup. And then also there's some bonuses for those who are attending. We're going to reach out to us. We're going to be also giving some options to get 7-day free access to the Jeff Pulver report. Now that you're a part of the community, now that you're a part of learning more, we want to really put the support beams under you, because I think a lot of people don't really understand all of the things about vCon yet, Jeff. But because
there's a lot to learn, and if you are curious, there are places you can go to the IETF. There's a working group. There's a mailing list. You could look up stuff there. You can go to conserver.io has information. And yeah, if you go to thejeffpulver.substack.com, that's my Substack. I do write about this a lot. I happen to be slightly obsessed about the power of virtualized conversations and what that means for both you and the future. So there's a lot happening, and the conversations just continue. And so it's May 29th. It's a Thursday, right? It's a Thursday in Dallas, and Tacoma America Center will be there from 12 to about 2ish. And it's going to be an opportunity to meet others that are also enthusiastic about the future of communications. As much as learn about what a vCon is. And I'm not there to pitch anything other than knowledge. Representing the vCon Foundation as a chief evangelist officer, I do enjoy evangelizing and bringing people together and getting them to the aha. So I do ask for people to think about questions they have, and we could just take it from there, and we'll see what we do. But it's going to be an opportunity to learn, to meet fellow enthusiasts, and to think about your future for the future.
Well, we appreciate it. Jeff, again, every single week, guys, we're having the vCon conversation and looking at how our industry as a whole is going to be impacting how we have conversations. Thanks, Jeff, and I'll see you in Dallas soon.
See you in Dallas.